Alright then, here we are. Welcome everyone and a very good evening to One Up Racing Season 23, our season finale, Round 12, the ERT of America, the race, the Circuit of the Americas, better known as CODA. I'll be your host for tonight. My name is Matt Sky and I'll be taking you through the P3 tier right here on YouTube, where there are still a couple of things to fight for. Now, the drivers' standings were already decided 2 races ago back in Singapore, but there are still other places to fight for. Second has also been secured now that Nick, the person in third, the driver in third, will not be competing. So that means that Funky has gotten the title already, and Ghost has now also secured P2 in the standings. Nick can still be pipped to third in the standings if Richmond scores more than 2 points today. And we also have quite a fight going on for P5 in the championship between Giggle and Jess. So Giggle driving for Aston Martin and Jess driving for Williams. They're both on 96 points. Giggle having 2 wins to their name and Jess having 1 to their name. The other great deal that we're watching is the fight in the constructor standings, because it's the Haas team currently leading the standings with 268 points. Only 27 points behind, we find the Aston Martin Aramco Cognizant F1 team on 241 points. With today a total, I calculated this earlier on, was about 63 points I think you could get. So there is still something to fight for with both drivers of either team competing. So that is good news. And also in the Aston Martin, both drivers are in our top 5. For the Haas team, of course, the championship winner is in first, but by the looks of it, this is likely going to be decided in the main race unless the Haas team outscores the Aston Martin team by about 12 points. And given that there are maximum of 23 points to get for a team, 12 points for first, 11 for second, so it seems a little bit out of the question that they will outscore the other. So that is a little bit of the story, but let's first take you back through what else happened so far on this calendar, because tonight we have another sprint weekend for you. Sprint weekend 4, the final sprint weekend, of course, too. We've raced in Qatar, Imola, Hungary, Brazil, Japan. The ERT of Las Vegas was round 6. Then we went on to Portugal, Belgium, Spain, Singapore, 2 weeks ago in Silverstone, where unfortunately I was not around, but tonight I am back for the season finale here, the ERT of the United States, so the Circuit of the Americas. Now, what you need to know about this is that we will be driving with the C4, C3 and C2 tires. I'll give you some more information about the track later on, but what is quite nice to know is that one of our drivers here tonight is the last race winner, because in season 21 we last raced here, and it was Jamie, currently 8th in the standings, who won that race. He's yet to pick up a podium this season, best finishing 5th, although he had quite a good chance of getting a podium in the race in Singapore, unfortunately not happening for him. Having still a fairly good season, but would likely want to repeat his feat in season 21 and try to clinch the win here and the States. So that is how that looks like. That is all the information that I can give you, at least for the time being. I'm just going to quickly check in the game, which decided to close on me. So I will have to get back into the F1 game and see that everything is working out wonderfully. In the meantime, that means that I'll have some time then to talk you through the circuit for tonight. So the Circuit of the Americas is 5.5 kilometers long, or 3.4 miles, has 20 turns, all unnamed, so I don't have a nice corner name to give you. There are 2 DRS zones with a detection before turn 11 and then the zone from just after turn 11 to turn 12, so the long back straight. And there's another detection before turn 19, the second to last corner, with the zone being the start-finish straight. Now, just gonna make sure I get back in because we had some issues with that. Let me just tag Jazz real quick. So I'll just have to get back into the game, and I don't think I have missed anything so far, but qualifying should be about to start. So I'll just keep an eye out for that so I can take you through it. In the meantime, let's have a look at the prize pool so we also know what we are fighting for today. Because for this season we have a £2,500 prize pool divided over the 3 tiers. With the Drivers' Championship, we already know that is Funky. He gets a £50 voucher for either PS or Amazon. And there's also free entry into the next season for the top 5, and that's why the fight for top 5 is also important. Same as it is for the constructor standings I mentioned before, the Haas team and the Aston Martin team fighting that out, with the winning constructor also getting free entry into the next season. Then the big prizes, NLR sponsoring this wonderful FGT Elite Light Cockpit and the Elite ES1 Sim Racing seat. To one of the winners of the respective tiers, so one person will be able to get that, and yeah, that is a wonderful thing to obtain if you get fortunate enough to be chosen. But of course, first you already had to make sure that you are the winner of the standings. Although for second and third there's also still something to win. GT Elite Light Cockpit in the ERT Racing seat, also one of the second and third place drivers of all the tiers, so 6 drivers in total that have a chance for this. And finally, all drivers are in with a chance to win the NLR Wheel Stand 2.0 if they participate in 10 races during season 23, the season that had 12 races, with tonight being number 12. Furthermore, also powered by Aztec, the shortest combined qualifying time will grant you these wonderful boots, as well as Pure Sim Gear, the driver with the most fastest laps and poles combined win a pair of gloves or socks, as you can see right now on the screen. Also powered by Mystery Simbox for the winner of the One Hub driver rankings, in which Funky was doing quite well, but I'm not sure if you'll still be able to pip the championship winner in P1 Timo to that. Then also powered by Vesper Team, our sponsor ERT. ERT, of course, with the ERT Going Gets Tough Award, which means you need to attend all races, finish outside the top 3, and complete all pre- and post-race interviews in order to be in a shot to win that t-shirt. And then finally, we are also powered by SimGrid, where you can find our standings, and the Mental Health Foundation. Now I'll go back to our main screen. I'm just checking with everything that is going on. I'm getting notifications that we're having some issues with the stream itself, even though other streams seem to be fine. My OBS seems to be all good. No issues there. So for the people in the chat, please make sure to let me know if you're able to watch it properly. But it definitely looks like it is something that we need to keep an eye on, and I'm also going to look into that to see if I can find everything all sound. Let's have a look. Go says it's sorted now, so that is wonderful. Kevin also not having any issues, so that is perfect. Still going to double check and see if it loads for myself. Though I'll likely have to cut my sound out a little bit so it doesn't intervene. The main problem is that it took a while to load, and indeed when I check now it also... Oh, actually now it does not take all that long to load. So I will let the drivers and the hosts know. We should be starting in about a minute from now, and then we'll be on our way. So that gives me a little bit of time to go over the weekly rankings as well, because that is important for the mystery shirt box that we were talking about earlier. And for now, it's actually Funky who is in the lead of these rankings, who's just pipped Timo Kurtz to the top position, so 90.94 points that Funky has. So it still looks like one of our P3 drivers is able to take that piece of the cake, so that is very, very good to see. Let's hope they will be able to succeed in that way, but we will find out about that next week. Let's move on then to our pre-race interviews, see what the drivers have said about it. So first off, Jamie, the question was, there were 5 in total. first question. So did you guys enjoy a little mini break? And he said, yeah, good to have some rest time. And then we are at the circuit of the Americas for the final race of the season. Is Coda a circuit you enjoy? He says, yeah, I like it. Well, better hope so. You won there 2 seasons ago. Number 3, with it being a sprint race, does that change your strategy a little? Or are you happy with your plans? And he says, I'm not a fan of sprints, to be fair. Question 4, how are you approaching this weekend? Just going to go for it and see what happens. And he says, I got nothing to lose, so going for it. And then finally, the majority of races this season, we've seen mixed conditions. Do we expect the same here? And he says, well, I do not really care. I think he's just eager to get in racing and to get his first podium of the season tonight. Then, Oles mentioning he enjoyed his break as well. It's also a circuit he enjoys. He is not too concerned about his strategy plans because of the sprint weekend. And he says here, with it being my last race here at 1UP Racing, I'm just going to enjoy it. So let's keep a good eye on him. Big shout out to Oles for being here this season. Let's hope he can get a nice result to end off his season and also his racing here at 1UP Racing. Then Jess is still fighting for P5, so that is also a driver we need to zoom in on. She says it was a nice break, thank you, allowed me to spend time with family and watch the F1. About the track, my pace isn't good, but it is a circuit I really enjoy driving. The fact you can go side by side in a lot of corners too, I'm looking forward to it. Still debating on a few strategies, which she had to think through today before the race tonight, so let's see what she can do here. And she says, yeah, I'm going to see what happens. I want to score as many points as possible as I'm fighting for P5 in the championship, currently tied with Ghost there. So definitely a key fight that is going to be happening. And then finally, because the mixed conditions we've seen this season, Jess says, I hope we don't get any because I haven't done any wet practice. Probably going to do some wet practice later on to make sure that I am prepared. In the meantime, we are in the game, so I am quickly going to go over to the game action so we can catch our qualifying for tonight. I'll get all the information ready. There is our screen as well. 15 drivers that we have on the grid today with Okeki, Giggle, Jess, Ghost, Doc Shelby, Ols. This final race, Funky, our championship winner, Jamie, Fozzie Bear, Matthias, who together with Funky is fighting for that constructor title. Rachman, who only needs 2 points in order to overtake Nick in P3, with Nick not being here tonight. And then we have John Mason, Hookie, Chiquaze, and Giacomundo rounding off the grid. So 15 drivers in total, and the first driver on the track is one of the Mercedes drivers. So that is going to be Jamie, and that is the driver we're going to be moving on to. So qualifying, invalidated, but of course still in his outlap, so that is not really relevant. 18 minutes that the drivers have in total. Most of the drivers will go for 3 laps in order to set the hopefully fastest lap time and try to clinch the pole position here. This track, although very notorious for track limits, mainly Sector 1, Sector 3, Turn 19, where this year around in the real life races we also saw a pole position being taken away because of track limits on the exit of Turn 19. So definitely something to consider as well. Drivers really need to be on their marks and make sure not to go over the white lines, because in the game it's very unforgiving. You can't appeal to it. You cross the line, you break it, you're done. You can go for your next run and you basically sacrifice not only a set of the soft rubber, the C4 tires that we're using today, but also a run out of the 3 that you have in total. Now a little bit about this track. This track was introduced in 2012, and even though we've only been racing here for just over a decade, it has already cemented itself as quite an important race on the F1 calendar. With a lot of spectators coming to the spectacle here in Texas, but also the design being one, well, could even say as a classic circuit that we find here, which was designed by a former racing driver from the States together with Herman Tilke. So it is one of the Tilke tracks, and even though they've gotten some scrutiny, they've gotten some complaints over the years recently, this still is one of those very, very nice Tilke tracks that are on point. And I see one that has driving slowly on the main straight. Not sure if it was Matthias that had a little bit of a moment there, but we will zoom in on that later on as soon as Jamie is done with his run. Now coming down the first DRS straight, so this is the back straight, so he is now approaching turn 12, one of the hardest braking zones on this track. Coming down from 319 kilometers an hour, braking all the way down to just under 100. And he's making his way now into the third section. He's now at 104.9, so that will be the key time to look at for Jamie's sector times. And I think Jamie will be one of the drivers that could be potentially fighting for a pole position tonight, given his track record and given his win here last time that we were here. But now the corner with track limits, turn 19, do not exceed it, and he does not. He keeps it clean, goes for a clean run. Last corner, good exit, and Jamie sets the first lap time in a 1:36.8. So that is going to be the lap to beat, and immediately it's a Doug Shelby going 2.2 seconds quicker with a 1:34.6. And, well, this must feel a little bit disheartening for Jamie, because that is a massive chunk that's been taken out of his lap. Let's now zoom into Matthias, who we saw having a little bit of an issue earlier on. And he indeed seems to be a little bit off the pace, as we have yellow in sector 1. That's one of the Mercedes, but that is Jamie going a little bit wide to make sure that the other drivers can overtake him. Indeed, for Matthias, not the best of runs either, with a 1:36.8, currently putting himself in P5 and last, as it is Ghost, who already clinched second in the standings, going fastest with a 1:33.7. Quite major gaps are emerging here tonight. After I saw Jamie's first lap, I'm like, okay, we're going to stick close to that, but within a minute, we've already gone 3 seconds quicker than that, so there definitely is quite a bit more in the tank. Let's zoom in now onto Giggle, who puts in a 1:34.8. It's about a 1.1 seconds off of his teammate. And remember, Giggle is fighting for that P5 in the championship. He will need to outscore Jess this both sprint race and the main race. And if he manages to do so, then he will clinch that P5 and also the free entry into the next season, which otherwise would be about, I think it's £8, top of my head. Now we also have Okeki on track, who just made his way into Sector 2. And we also have Funky, our championship winner, who has started his fast lap, so we'll be watching him later on, as Okeki is now rounding off turn 11 and going on to the back straight. DRS is going to be enabled right here at the line, and he speeds his way down the main straight. Now we saw Jamie hit a total of 319 kilometers an hour, and it looks like Okeke's setup is a little bit different as he gets to 325. Seemingly having a little bit of a slower exit compared to Jamie, but it's a 1:04.0, so it's about 9 tenths quicker than what Jamie was. So he seems to be going for a high 35. So still improvement that can be made there. Let's see how far up the standings he is able to get. Maybe can make up some extra time in the final sector. Coming around turn 19. Really taking that safe. Does not want to pick up track limits there. And as he rounds off the final corner, we'll see him go for, I think, a 1:35.6. So putting himself in P7 for the time being. Let's quickly go to Funky, who is making his way around the final sector. 9 tenths quicker already than Okeki. So he seems to be going for a 34.7, but that still would be about a second off of Ghost's lap time. Ghost really putting in a banger with his first run, and Funky comes across the finish line actually with a 1:33.7 as well. So it shows with a purple final sector that Funky is going to be fighting for pole here. Only 33 thousandths of a second splitting the numbers 1 and 2 in the championship. The confirmed 1 and 2 in the championship. Definitely very, very close between the two of them. Now, if I have another look out there, Chiquays, Rachman, and Fozzie Bear all on an outlap. And Fozzie Bear will be the first driver to go for that run. We've seen Rachman specifically going not for 3 runs this season, but trying to conserve some extra tires in the race. And in this case, will be important for him. Remember, 3 points or more, and you are P3 in the standings. So that is something that you can brag about. But first, it's his teammate Fozzie Bear in the McLaren that's going to make his run down the main straight and into turn 1. Turn 1 being a little bit difficult as it is a blind corner. It's very easy to overshoot, but also to lose time here as he makes his way into the twisty as bends of that first sector, one of the more beautiful sectors that you can find here, taking a little bit of inspiration from Silverstone here, but also the stadium section taking inspiration from the Hockenheim circuit. Throughout this circuit, you'll see a lot of inspiration from other tracks. The Suzuka S's as well that you could compare this to. But that was what was kept in mind with this Tilke design back when it was being developed, 2010 and 2011. Now coming back down the main straight, remember the sector time we're eyeing for is a 103.1 in order to get close to Funky's sector time, so we can only assume that Ghost's sector times were quite similar. Now making his way around, he's at a 104.8, so he is quite a way off of those fastest lap times, so he's not going to be slotting in with the other drivers here tonight. At least not on his first run, that will be. So going to be watching him making his way through the final bits. Coming around turn 18, diving into 19. Keep the track limits in mind and has a pretty good exit, good run down to the second to last corner, and invalidates in the last corner now then, so the 37.8 will not stand. Fortunately no run for him yet, and that means he will have to go back into the pits and hopefully get another one later on. Chiquet is also invalidated, Rageman has also invalidated in sector 1, so quite a few drivers now coming out with invalidations, although Giacomundo currently is about 2/10 quicker than his own previous lap, so let's try to stay on board with him. Although both of our Aston Martins currently busy with an outlap as well. And one of the Alpha Towers is still out there, that could be Hookie. And Hookie is indeed on a fast lap as well. He's about 4/10 quicker than his previous lap time, and that could leapfrog, that could make that he is going to move from P7 up to P5, leapfrogging Giggle and the dog Shelby. In the meantime, let's see if everything with the stream is still okay, because we do keep getting some notifications from that, although everything seems to be fine from my end, so I'm not entirely sure what is happening in that sense. But looks like I at least have not been tagged in such a way that I particularly have to be worried with all else. Hookie, in the meantime, only 1,000th of a second away, so he puts himself P6, at least improves by 1. And now we were going to be on our way with Giacomundo, who has also finished his lap time. 134.7. So it looks like most of the drivers able to get consistently into the 134s. Just a few drivers that are currently jumping out of that. And those are notably the 1 and 2 in the championship. Now Giggle, who is on a fast lap. Let's go on board with him. Let's see what he can do at the end of Sector 2. That is a 103.1. So he is right on the mark with Ghost and Funky. But can he pip them? He needs to improve by about 6/10 in the final sector in order to do so. We saw quite a few drivers take it easy through turn 19, because they did not want to pick up track limits in their first flyer. Let's see if he can keep it clean now as he makes his way around. Does take considerably more risk, but still stays nicely in between those white lines. And he puts himself up on the board with a 134.1, not breaking the 34 barriers into 33s, but still good enough for P3 at the time being. And that is one of the laps that Jess will need to be looking out for as well. Now Golsten, who has just started his fast lap, will be eyeing that pole position, wants to get a good result to round off the season with. He knows he's going to be P2, but for Aston Martin, still everything to fight for in the constructor standing. So a good result here means that they can still clinch that, even though they're currently 27 points behind the Haas team of Funky and Matthias. Getting on to the long straight, but I think there was a little bit of towing going on between the Astons on the main straight, which is a very clever tactic, and that could be just that 1 or 2 tenths extra that you need in order to get that pole position here tonight. Let's see how fast he is when he comes down and out of Sector 2, but he is significantly slower, unfortunately, so he will not be beating his own lap time. So let's quickly move away to the other drivers. We have one of the other Haas drivers who is on a fast lap. We're not able to see if he's currently beating his own lap times, but because he did have to back out a little bit at the start, we can only assume that Matthias is going to set a faster lap time as he comes around the final 2 corners. This one has to be clean. It is clean. Now do not overshoot it, do not cut it too much. Keeps it clean, does not go over the line, and puts himself into P3. So he does beat Giggles' time, and that shows Haas has come out to fight. Haas wants to take the constructor standings. They are in the driver's seat to take so. They could even take it mathematically in the sprint race tonight. But that is going to be a tall order as they'll need to outscore their rivals by 12 points. But definitely not impossible either. Be 12 or 13 even. I think it's 13. Or, no, 12 points. 12 points. They need to outscore them by 12 points. And with the race winner getting 12, second 11, and so on, means they need to outscore the Aston Martin team quite significantly in order to do so. That seems to be fairly unlikely, at least if we see qualifying going the way as it is now. Now further down the line on the track we find John, but he's also about 7/10 off of his own lap time, so he is not going to improve on that. Fozzie Bear currently being out there as well, but he is significantly slower. We have a new fastest lap time. Chiquaise with his first running lap immediately goes full purple and goes to a 1:33.5. So yes, we can go quicker, and the Red Bull driver coming out of nowhere to put himself on provisional pole for the time being. A monstrous lap from him, as we see that John has retired, but I think that might be because of a little incident entering the pit lane. So John is not going to be improving more, but the driver that we are trying to keep an eye on here is Jess. Jess still in the pit box, has not set a lap time yet, and will need to do great to beat Giggle. Currently in P5 is where he stands, and Jess yet to do a lap, and also has to be careful not to pick up any track limits when she goes for that run. Now we have about 2 minutes 30 left on the clock, so I think most drivers are going to be coming out. What is going to be interesting for me to see is how much fuel Chiquaise has. Does not have a lot, and I don't think Chiquaise is going to have enough time to go for another lap. So Chiquaise's lap time, that is the one they need to beat. He will not be improving on that one, and all the other drivers still have a shot to go at it. Jess is now on an out lap 2. We only find Fozzie Bear, Matthias Funky, and Ghost in the pit. Funky is known for staying in the pit for quite long, so he'll be likely one of the final drivers to exit that. And it is actually Funky already going out just before Ghost, so it'll be Matthias or Fozzie Bear being the last ones to go over. And I think one of the McLaren drivers, so Rachman, is going to be the first one to start his flyer, and he will do so in a moment as he starts his run after coming down at turn 20. Little bit of hydration for me is important too, as Rachman starts his last flying lap. This is the lap where he needs to do it. Currently finds himself in P8. Ooh, okay, did go over the line there, but did not pick up any track limits there, so that is fortunate for him, but definitely not the start to the lap that you would want here. Coming out of Sector 1, he has invalidated, so Rachman is not going to improve on his lap time. And that is very, very unfortunate to see, and he will not have enough time to go for an extra lap. The driver behind him is going to be Hookie. Hookie is on a new lap. It surely was 4/10 quicker, but that was the last time, the last lap that he did. Let's see if he can improve already in the first sector. Keeps it clean for now. Pretty good run as he makes his way out of Sector 2. Mark coming out here, and he currently is... We missed it. Okay. Oh, he spins. Oh, loses front wing 2 in the process. So no quicker lap time for Hookie either. Seems that ISO now a little bit too, because I thought we were catching the sector time, but we weren't, unfortunately. So I cannot tell you whether drivers are going to be quicker. Jamie has invalidated, so he won't improve from P12. But let's zoom in with Jess. Jess is in Sector 1, sets a 25.9, but yeah, that is going to be the time to beat. Well, We don't know what the time to beat is because Jess has not set a fastest lap time yet. Now, few drivers have come across the line. So Matthias, Chiquez, Rachman, John, and Fozzie Bear will not be setting any more lap time. So it's just 5 drivers that can do so. The first driver going to be coming across next is going to be Fozzie Bear, who has taken the line. He indeed came out of the pits way too late, so he will not be making any more runs tonight. Let's see how quick Jess goes. Remember the 103 lows we were aiming for, 103.7. It means that she is going to be right around the mark where Giggle is. I think about 6 or 7 is what she can be aiming for here, as one of the Alfa Romeos has to get out of her way. It might have been Odok Shelby who's gone a little wide. Bull's now coming through in P7. What can Jess do here? Keeps it clean for the time being, but is it enough to put herself in front of Giggle? That is what she'll be aiming for, but it is not enough for her. P13. Be a little bit disappointing as Funky goes quickest. He puts himself in P1, goes to support at his lap time, and that is it, folks. That is qualifying at Coda. Funky, our championship winner, has taken pole position. Chiquez, quite a good result from him, puts himself in P2, only 0.06 of a second away. And we find Ghost, our second in the standings, in P3, as Matthias, the second Haas driver, rounds out the top 4 and puts Haas in the driver's seat to take the constructor standings here tonight. The pole position for the man that has gotten so many poles and so many race wins already this season. It is Funky, who we find in pole position. And outside the top 4, we find Odok Shelby, who's had some pretty good qualifying runs this season as well. We have Giggle, who's fighting for P5 in the standings. Ols in his final race here at 1UP Racing. John, Rachman, and Hookie rounding off the top 10. With the final 5 being Jackamundo, Jamie, Jess, who's also fighting for P5, Okeke, and finally Fozzie Bear in P15. So these are your standings as we're going to prepare ourselves for the sprint race here tonight. And after that, the main race, which is going to last 20 laps in total. And as for the sprint race, I believe it were 7 laps, and that is correct indeed. So, qualifying has decided the grid for this sprint race. 7 laps that the drivers have, and the top 12 is going to score points, with 1 point being either increased or decreased depending on the way that you are going to count it. No mandatory pit stops. There will be 2 mandatory pit stops in the 20 lap race, and for that it's important to know that the pit lane time loss is about 18.6 seconds. So that is all the information, all the key information that I have for you tonight. And in a moment, we will be moving ourselves to the starting grid. There will be no formation lap. So as soon as we see the drivers on the grid, the lights are going to be coming on. And we're going to be on our way for this 7-lap sprint race, this sprint shootout, where potentially the Haas team can already do good business and secure the constructor standings win. Unless they want to keep it a little bit more interesting for us if they don't outscore the Aston team by at least 12 points. Crowd definitely seems to be very excited, especially this man here in the middle. He's now moved. Yeah, there we go. He's cheering again. He's cheering again. I'm not sure if you're looking at the same man who's just in front of the window, the second DHL mark in the gray shirt. Sometimes I'm cheering. Yeah, see, he's waving. He's very happy, very excited. But so are we. We're very excited for this season finale here tonight, and thankfully we have 2 races that we can watch because of it being the sprint weekend, the 4th sprint weekend of the season. So 1/3 of our races were sprint weekends this season. And also let us know what you think about sprint weekends in the chat as we have our lights. 5 of our lights are on, and we are on our way. The final sprint race of the season with a Red Bull getting a notably better start than Funky. And Chiquez has the inside line there as well, but can he make it stick? They're going side by side, but is it enough for Chiquez to take it? Funky still on the inside, does not want to concede, but likely will have to, as the Red Bull has come ahead. And we immediately have Okeke, who's retired from the race, and we have a safety car. I think we have a safety car indeed. Safety car is on track. Quite a bit has happened already, oh so quickly. It seems like quite a few drivers have been involved in an incident out there in turns 1 and 2. Let's have a little bit of a look at the telemetry so we can see position changes. Fozzie Bear has actually gained 6 positions already. Both Jamie and Jess, also 2. Hookie's gone to, Rageman's gone to. But more notably, it was Shaquaze who has pipped Funky to the lead of the race, as we now have our safety car. So we will be having a little bit of a delay and a horrible start for Ols, who started in P7 in his final race here tonight. The sprint race, at least, the final sprint race, but now finds himself in P14. Also important to note, the real life rules are a little bit different for sprint weekends than we have here in the F123 game, which means that it's still the same as it was last season. So qualifying decides your grid for the sprint. Sprint results decide the grid for the main race. So for Keke, that means he's already dropped 1 position at least. For Fozzie Bear, so far it's looking quite good. And with the safety car staying out for a few laps, most of these drivers are going to be, especially drivers on the softs, are going to make good use out of them. So we could expect both of the McLarens of Rageman and Fozzie Bear to get up a little bit more in these 7 laps that we have tonight. Safety car likely going to be coming in at the end of lap 3. Although most of the danger already seems to have been averted. Most of the crises have been averted. So, if we're really lucky, could see the safety car come in at the end of this lap, but more like... Oh no, wait, the safety car stopped. No, he's picking everyone up. Okay. Slightly concerned there, but everything seems well and everything seems fine. But yeah, like I was saying, likely at the end of lap 3, the safety car is going to be coming in. After which we'll have to wait till lap 6 for DRS. Only 2 laps we'll have with DRS then, so that is not going to be a whole lot. But that is what the drivers will have to work with tonight. Now, of course, tonight for this race here, we don't have any playing cards, slot machines, or gambling going on like we will have in Vegas, like we saw with the race earlier on this season in Vegas. And also no baseball trophies or quarterback helmets for the drivers winning. Just a good old cowboy hat for being here in Texas if you win that race. Although the drivers out here tonight likely will not be wearing any of those hats. They will just be celebrating their race wins if they are able to do so. And in the meantime, let us know in the chat who you think is going to win this sprint race. Whether that is a driver in the top 5 or if the McLarens from Rageman and Fozzie Bear can surprise us a little bit here. We have not gotten a notification about the safety car coming in this lap, which means we'll be behind the safety car for another 2.5 minutes approximately before the race is going to resume. So, as I mentioned before, the end of lap 3, we will resume. So lap 4 will be the first racing lap, full racing lap hopefully, and after that DRS around in lap 6 and 7. Now for the main race, we found out 2 races ago back in Singapore that indeed the limit that you can have for safety cars in one session is 5. Because we could have had 6 in Singapore, but that did not happen eventually, and we had 5 safety cars in total, as the game cap said there. Tonight will be a lot more difficult to get to 5 with only 20 racing laps, but seeing the incidents that have already occurred in lap 1, we could definitely expect to see 1 or 2 safety car sessions later on in the main race. And again, Singapore also being very notorious for being the only race with having at least 1 safety car on every time that we have visited the track, including the race of this year. Most of the cases, even more. But at least 1. Meanwhile, the drivers are making their way through Sector 1. We really have to make sure that their tires are going to be on temperature. And now one of the tricks that the drivers will be using, which you can hopefully see Funky doing as well, is using the gas and the brake pedal at the same time. Now, this usually is a very big no-go, and cars in the real world don't really like that, so please don't try that all too much. But for the F1 game, it's a good tactic to warm up your tires without really ruining them. So it is something that most of the drivers will be doing, and perhaps will start doing so at the end of Sector 2 and the beginning of Sector 3 when the safety car lights are going to be coming off. All the drivers are now ready to go. Sum themselves up, and yeah, Giggle is going to be eyeing that spot of Matthias. Will need to outscore the Haas drivers if they want to make good promise here tonight. They're currently being outscored by 2 points, which means it's still possible to clinch the title, but it's going to be ever more difficult for them to try and win it. We are going to look at the position changes. That is the key information for us. And in a moment, when Chiquez is going to be on his way, we are going to resume the race, the sprint race here at the Circuit of the Americas. We're already halfway through, just had a safety car for the last 2 laps. And I think just after turn 19, Chiquez will want to floor it, because that is the most ideal position to do so because of the track limit violations you could get. So now you would want to go on the power in order to take a good exit. He seems to wait a little bit longer. So going into the final turn is then when you want to start it, but definitely taking his dear time, and it will mean that he's not going to surprise his opponents whatsoever. He's going to speed off nonetheless, and it will be Funky who immediately has to look in his rearview mirror. Chiquez has got a good jump on all the other drivers, but goes already quite close to Funky, although the first 2 drivers are on the soft compound, so it'll be a little bit more difficult to overtake them, as we see John dropping down the order a little bit more, with Funky and Rachman still in P2 and P7, with Fozzie Bear in P9, which was the driver that I was eyeing for. Chiquez still leading by about 4/10, but I think Funky will be waiting for the DRS later on in the race. Remember, lap 6 is when that is going to happen, but Ghost all over the back of Funky. Let's go on board with Ghost as he tries to get a good exit, and Funky almost spins it down there. And now he knows, Ghost knows he needs to make the overtake happen now. Uses his overtake that he has at his disposal, but looks like Funky's also using it to defend. Can you make a send down there? He has not used enough ERS to go for the move, and he does not want to make the move either, at least just for now. But definitely not been able to capitalize on that mistake there, as Rachman has picked up a position from Odok Shelby, as we still find Jess in P11, which is good news for Giggle for the time being, as he finds himself in P5. Goal seems to be very up for the fight with Funky, who goes a little bit of a different line there through turn 17 and 18. And as we come around turn 18, which likely was a track limit violation for Ghost, you need to watch out with that, because 2 more means 3 seconds to your name, and that is not going to help you out, as Rachman has said the fastest lap time, is also very, very close to Giggle and wants to go for an overtake here, but is not able to make the move just yet. But he will be eyeing at that position, will be keeping his eyes on the prize. Remember, 3 points for him is enough to leapfrog Nick in the standings and secure P3. Nobody is going to be overtaking him after that. So that is what Rachman is fighting for. And at the moment, it's looking quite good, with himself being in P6. At least for the moment, but definitely more to gain, as he is one of the runners, one of the drivers on the soft compounds. Let's go back to the fight up front, where we have a 3-way fight going on between Chiquez, Funky, and Ghost for the lead, as we already see Chiquez trying to defend a little bit there, trying to break the toll. Though it is a bit early to do so, because DRS has not been activated, so the drivers will likely not be able to go for a move just yet, and should be waiting for the DRS to come into play. That is going to be enabled the next lap, so the start-finish straight there won't have anything yet, but it will have it at the back straight. So as soon as the drivers come out of turn 11, just a little bit after that, the DRS is going to be activated. But for that, Funky has to stay within DRS range and is looking to fall outside of it. The gap's about 9/10 now. Of course, what will matter is what this gap will be at the end of Sector 1. Has already used quite a bit of ERS as Hookie picks up his first 3-second time penalty of the race. Chiquez set the fastest lap time. There's a little bit more ERS to his disposal compared to the other drivers, and also Ghost has a little bit more than Funky has in the tank for the time being. And then we also have to look at Matthias, and Giggle, who also have seemingly quite a bit more, as Rageman is starting to fall behind a little bit more behind Giggle. But with DRS only starting now, this is when the fight is going to heat up. So we're going to go more to the front of the pack, where it looks like Funky has fallen outside of DRS range. So he's lacking a bit of pace here, and that means that Ghost is going to be ready for that overtake. No DRS for the driver in front of him. Needs to get a good exit. Uses a little bit of overtake. But yeah, no DRS to defend. That means Funky is a sitting duck here. And Ghost knows it. Doesn't use too much ERS. And is just going to go for the clean move. And puts the Aston in front of Funky. So that means that Aston is going to score equal points, with the standings being as they are now. So they're not going to move in anywhere closer. Those 27 points that they already have the lead of. I remember in the main race, 38 points will still be distributed as a max for a team. Now what Ghost will want to do here is stay within that DRS range. Has to make sure he does that now. But with a very good exit, a very good turn 19 for Shikways means that Ghost now has... No, he still has DRS. He was able to stay in between because the detection point is before turn 19. Most drivers will think, and I do make that mistake sometimes as well, that the detection point will be in front of the final corner, but in front of turn 20. But it's actually in front of turn 19. And back then, Ghost was still within DRS range, so that helps him out a little bit. But if he wants to go for a race-winning move, he will need to make it on the back straight, otherwise he is not going to be able to do so. Needs to stay close, as Doc Shelby also picks up a 3-second time penalty for track limits, and that could have been very useful for Jess, but with the gap to Fozzie Bear being quite significant, it looks like Doc Shelby is, well, not going to lose anything, and Hookie maybe not either. At least not for the time being. But here we have our fight for P1. Ghost is using all of his overtake, using the DRS, has to go round the outside of Shikways. Shikways still on the inside, needs to hang on to it. A little bit of wheel bagging going on there, and it's Ghost who has the overtake completed on Shikways. But can he stay in front? There's almost no ERS left at his disposal. Can he still keep it? Can he keep it tight, and can he claim the win of this sprint race after what has quite the phenomenal pickup after having a decent start, being there in P3, picking up a position with the first DRS lap, and now picking up a second position with the second DRS lap. And is it enough for him? It will be. A good final exit puts Ghost in P1 for the sprint race, with Shikways, Funky, Matthias, and Giggle rounding off the top 5. Rageman in P6, and with Doc Shelby being in 7. Jamie picks up 1 position after a time penalty from Hookie, only 86,000 separating them. As we have Fozzie Bear, Jess rounding off the top 11. And in a moment we'll have to look who is P12, so we know who has scored 1 provisional point here for this sprint race. But our winner that we're on board with now is Ghost, who is also again the driver of the day, at least for this sprint race. We'll be talking about our driver of the days after the main races, but let's first bump over to the results for the sprint, because that's what we need to look at. And the last driver that will be scoring any points is going to be Ols. So we find Ols with 1 point, Jess with 2, but he's going to lose significant amounts of points to Giggle, who has now picked up 8 points. So Jess will need to outscore Giggle by 6, well, even 7 points, because Giggle has 2 race wins. So Jess needs to pick up 7 more points in the main race than Giggle, otherwise she is going to lose that fight for P5 in the standings. So now we have the full information there, as the drivers are now going to get ready for the race. Remember, 20 laps, 2 mandatory pit stops, and a lot of action that will be going underway. We still have the same man standing in front of that second DHL mark on the left-hand side. But it's nice to see the animations that they've made. Never really looked into those too much. But with the spectator views being just above the pit windows, it's a lot easier to watch here. at the Circuit of the Americas at Austin, Texas. It's a very famous city that we have in the US, especially in Texas. Though, not the capital, that would be Dallas for you. The state Texas, that is, of course. Now remember, this track was built specifically for the F1 calendar, and that was after Bernie Ecclestone managed to strike a deal with one of the F1 US planners. And he's like, okay, I have a contract, now I need a track. We're going to build up some land, or buy up some land in Texas, which was now here in Austin, and that is where we're going to put a new track. So the Herman Tilke design track that we mentioned earlier on. And that is why we have this track here in the States. Quite a few tracks that you find all the way across the States. By far not the only venues that we've raced at. Of course, Detroit, Palm Beach, and even the Vegas Grand Prix coming to mind in 1981. But here we have our main race. 5 lights are on, and we are on our way. Let's see if Chiquez can do the same trick as he could do in the sprint race, but this time against Ghost instead of Funky. He will be on the inside again. Has started on the soft compounds once more and has gotten the better start. Immediately picks up 1 position at the race start. So Chiquez finds himself in the lead. Giggle, who has been fighting with Doc Shelby, still puts himself in P5 for the time being. Doc Shelby already picked up a place. Giacomundo's picked up 4. And Jamie losing 3 on the first lap, with Jazz also losing 1 on the opening lap, being very, very close to Jamie for the time being. But the best start being there for Chiquez, who's already got a 6/10 gap to Ghost. I'll be looking to extend that to over a second before DRS is going to be activated at the end of lap 2, beginning of lap 3. So let's take a look at our tire compounds. Most drivers going for those soft compounds. It's only Ghost, Hooky, and Okeke who've decided to start on mediums, as Ghost finds himself overtaken by Funky there on the back straight. So Funky showing that where Ghost pipped him earlier on, that's definitely something he does not want to happen again in the main race. Remember, now it's the Astons outscoring the Haas drivers by 1 point. So the gap is 26 points in total. And with 37 points still to obtain, that means that the Haas team just needs to score 12 points. And with Funky in P2, 17 points to his name would be enough to clinch the constructor standings for the Haas team. And that is what we'll be looking out for. But with Haas comfortably in 2nd and 4th for the time being, there at this point is nothing for them to worry about. But of course, a lot of laps still to go, 2 pit stops to still go. So a lot of action that can still happen out here on track. So far, our gaps are staying quite close. The only drivers falling outside the DRS range being Fozzie Bear in P10 and John Mason being in P15. All the other drivers well within DRS. As soon as that is going to activate in the next lap out there. Let's go a little bit on board with Goals, because his gap to Funky is increasing slowly but surely. But then again, these soft tires will be a little bit better at the start of the race, and they'll be starting to fall back a couple laps time. Now, of course, these race strategies are all for a one-stopper. We're not going to see a one-stopper here tonight, as that is not allowed. It looks like for now, Ghost will have to look in his rear viewers a little bit more, because Matthias is starting to come closer to him, only 4/10 away, as he's looking to try and go for overtaking moves into the next lap. And with him having those soft compounds, means that he will have to go by as soon as possible, so that he can put the pressure, really put the pressure on the Astons. Cole so far still staying within that 1 second. Now falls outside. Look at that. He loses about a 1/10 in turn 19. So it shows how key that corner is, as Chiquez is at the fastest lap time. But yeah, now DRS will come into play. Has been enabled. But of course, on the main straight, you won't have it yet, because the detection point was in lap 2. Just before turn 19, so now the detections will matter, and the one that we will find first will be just in front of turn 11, which is already about halfway through our 2nd sector. So drivers now making their way through sector 1, which Matthias has not completed. The driver's still in there. Giggle has fallen out of contention a little bit, so he will come under pressure from a Duck Shelby. He's about 3/10 away, and that might just be close enough for Duck Shelby to go for the overtake. But first, we're on board with Matthias. Let's see what he can do against Ghost. Seems to have gotten the better exit there, but will have to use quite a bit of his ERS in order to even get by, with the gap being this big. And Ghost also having that DRS, that drag reduction system, means it will not be easy for him to overtake, rather impossible. But Duck Shelby is going to try though, and he tries around the outside of Giggle, but will have to concede there, as Giggle has good enough corner to cover him off. But with the Duck Shelby already mounting this pressure, it's going to be very tough for Giggle to keep the drivers behind him. And after Duck Shelby, there's also a Raging Rageman coming down, so Giggle is at risk of losing 2 positions here. Stay on board with Duck Shelby, as he's going to get another DRS run down the main straight, and he's closer now. Much closer as we get to the start of lap 4. Fozzie Bear picked up a time penalty for track limits. He is back in P11, and Duck Shelby actually decides not to even go for an overtake. Just use the DRS to stay a little bit closer and use that at the back straight, which is where it really counts and where it really wants to make it count. We'll see Hooky and Giacomundo fight for that P8. There's Giacomundo is also now losing a position to Jamie, fighting back with him, but Jamie seems to be in front as we go into the S's. So Giacomundo losing 2 positions there over the span of just 2 corners. Has already picked up 3 positions in this race, so definitely able for him to get more positions, as he's currently the driver with the most positions gained in the main race. So Duck Shelby then having a good exit out of turn 11, and yeah, we can see Giggle knows it. Giggle's already covering it. Duck Shelby is using his overtake a little bit, but also recognizes the gap is too big, so he can't make the move just yet, and is just going to stay behind. So a bit of a conservative move coming out from Duck Shelby, not trying to risk it too much and keep the tires in order to keep that clean. Let's go further down the line, as we're now on board with Jess, who is fighting for P5 in the standings together with Giggle. With Giggle in P5, and she being only in P11, is looking to be quite a bit harder for her. Giacomundo in the meantime has dropped back quite significantly. I think he made a mistake earlier on, because he now finds himself in P14 just behind Ols. Ukeke also picked up significant amount of positions after a DNF in the sprint race earlier on. Now finds himself in P12 just behind his teammate Jess. And Rachman's come in. Rachman has come in for the first pit stop of the day, and he's gone to mediums. So he's ditched those soft tires after just a few laps and decided, alright, we go for mediums now. Maybe 2 medium stints would be good for him, because he already used softs in the sprint race. So I think he's burned through all of his softs and could go for 2 runs of about 8 laps long and go on mediums with that. But with seeing him stop already, I think most of these soft runners are going to be coming in a moment as well, as we find Matthias being extremely close to goals, and also Funky being close to our race leader. But let's go and look what Matthias can do, because we have a move for the lead by Funky. Funky is on the inside. Matthias can't just quite do that yet, but we see from his on board that Funky has completed the move onto Chikway, so he's back to where he started on pole for the sprint race. But now in the main race, he finds himself in P1, as we have a very nice camera view from the car of Matthias. The Haas currently in P4, but I think he or Funky is going to come in this lap, and I think Chikway's immediately is going to follow. Let's go on board with Funky. Is he going to come in or stay out for another lap? And he comes in. He comes in for his first stop. Chikway's actually follows. Matthias also follows. Oh, that's interesting. So all the Haas drivers coming in, which means that Matthias will have to wait a little bit. I think they missed a little bit of communication there, because that cost Matthias a place. Yes, he has to wait. He has to wait, and could lose a position to Giggle because of that. But does he lose a position to Giggle because of that? He does. He is now behind not only Giggle, but also a Duck Shelby. So not a great strategy call from the Haas drivers with that double stack. And that is going to hurt their points tally for the end of this race. And then again, if Funky already picks up first, second, or third, it would still be enough for the As drivers to clinch that constructor title. But it's not going to make their life easier, and it's definitely not going to work out well for Matthias either. In the meantime, we should be keeping an eye out for Ghost, because I think Ghost is going to be coming in an extra 1 or 2 laps. As we see, Giacomundo is now exiting the pits, but he's lost a lot of time to all the other drivers, so I think he's had another bit of an incident earlier on. Ghost really seems to be gunning for it as he makes his way down the fast right-handers outside of turn 18 and into turn 19. Might still come in if he wants to cover that undercut, but I think he still has some soft tires ready, so he likely will want to extend his stint a little bit. And if he extends it by just enough, could even go for 2 soft runs. So let's see what his tactic is going to be in a moment, as we now move and hop on board with Jess, who's also going to go for her pit stop. So 1 lap later than the lead drivers, and also 1 lap later than Giggle, our direct competitor. Williams pit box being almost all the way at the end, even of the pit straight. Jess is going to switch to the medium compounds. Also a soft, medium, medium, or soft, medium, soft seems to be likely setups for most of the drivers, depending on how many soft tires they have remaining. And Jess finds herself about 4.5 seconds behind Jamie for the time being, but in front of Fuzzy Bear, Ols, John, and Giacomundo, so still in P11 for her. With Okeke yet to make a stop, so provisionally in P10. Now down the midfield, we don't have too much fighting going on yet, although Matthias and Odok Shelby are within DRS range of Giggle, who's fallen out of the DRS range of Rachman. We can see that Rachman has picked up a position towards Giggle, so he finds himself in P6. Good pit stop sequence by him. Giggle picking up a position for Matthias, but losing 1 to Rachman, so still finds himself in a provisional P5, with Hookie and Okeke still having to stop. Ghost also, but Ghost likely to stay. Well, might actually come out right around the area where Giggle is, but Ghost being on a different strategy with different compounds, so I don't think Giggle should worry too much about being in front of Ghost or behind, as John picks up a 3-second time penalty for track limits. So the second driver in this main race to pick that up. As we now have our third with the Doc Shelby, and now Hookie and Okeke have come in, so it's only Ghost who is staying out. I think Ghost is going to come in at the end of the next lap. Hookie and Okeke are likely going to come out towards the back of the grid, but I think Hookie is still in front of Jess. Okeke being behind that. Actually, I say that, but there's Jess. And Jess is in front of Hookie as well. Jess now in P9. Picked up a few positions in this pit stop sequence, so that is good news for her. She wants to make a bit still for P5 in the standings, but really needs to outscore Giggle quite significantly. And Giggle has moved himself up into the DRS range of Rachman, who likely seemed to have made a little bit of a mistake, because he was about 1.6 seconds away from Chiquaise, and that is now 2.3 seconds. So the gap has increased by a bit, as we still have Funky leading the race with about 2 seconds over Chiquaise. So Funky definitely having the best pace out there. We're now going to go on board with our man in front. That is Ghost. I think he's going to be coming in at the end of lap 8. So that should be now. And now the key is, what will his strategy be? Is he going to go for double soft 6 laps? Or is he going to go for another medium run and then about 5 laps? No, he's going to stay out an extra lap. So that will be 2 soft runs then for sure. So 2 soft runs, about 5 laps that he will be able to do. Currently losing quite a bit of time, but is hoping to catch up all that time on those soft tires that likely the other drivers do not have anymore, unless Funky is going to extend his stint as well. So an offset strategy for Ghost. I will have to see later down the line whether that is the right strategy and the right call to make, as we are now going to go to Giggle, who has closed the gap to Rachman. Doc Shelby goes a little bit wide there, immediately comes under pressure of Matthias. He's about 2/10 away. Let's go on board with Matthias. They make their way into the S section, also the end of Sector 1, which will be right around this area. There it is, 4/10 slower than his fastest sector time, but that is not important now. Although drivers do pick up a point for being the fastest driver in the top 12, and also 1 point for the fastest lap outside of the top 12. As now we find Okeke with a 3-second time penalty and a very wide line by Doug Shelby. This is the move Matthias was waiting for. Has full ERS at his disposal, knows he needs to use it. Goes for the inside, side by side, down the main straight. And also, Giggle, he's already past Rachman. A little bit more of a fight for the Haas driver, but he's going to stay in front of Doug Shelby. And Matthias puts himself in P6 with Giggle now being at a P4. Provisional P3 even with all the time that Ghost is losing. Ghost really has to come in now because he's losing way too much time to the drivers behind him. And he's likely going to be coming out right around the time, right around the place where Jamie's currently driving. And that is not looking too good for him. But will his tactic pay off later on? Remember, he has sets of fresh softs. He will likely be using softs for the remaining 2 runs. Now coming out. There goes Giggle. There go Doug Shelby and Rachman. And now as he comes out, still comes out just a bit before Jamie. But will first have to close the gap with Doug Shelby, which is about 3 seconds. A lot of fighting going on there. Matthias tried to look down the inside of Rachman to overtake that P4. Let's see if we can get a good view from it from Doug Shelby's car, as both of the drivers here are trying to overtake Rachman. Rachman not seeming to have the pace for the time being. He goes very wide out on the exit of turn 9. But a good exit here means that you can go for a Doug Shelby, having a pretty good one himself. But it will first be Matthias who is going to go around the outside of Rachman. Doug Shelby comes down the other side, so both drivers fly by Rachman. There's nothing that he can do about that. Now Doug Shelby has to make sure he does not touch his competitor there. And even though there seemed to be a little bit of nudging, nothing serious happening there, thankfully. So Matthias and Doug Shelby now being safely past that Mercedes of Rachman, and with Ghost still having to do that. But Ghost now is going to be the fastest man on track and has already closed the gap to Rachman quite significantly. So we might already see him go by the start-finish straight if he gains enough time. Otherwise it will be the halfway point of the next lap. Here comes Ghost then, clearly on the charge. It's about 7/10 away. Not using his ERS, so we'll want to wait a little bit longer as the gaps further on ahead have increased. 2.6 seconds from Funky to Chiquace, another 2.6 to Giggle, then a 1.23 gap from Matthias to Giggle, which is between places 3 and 4. And that's when it gets a little bit more interesting as we find Ols in the pit lane for his second pit stop, and that might be for a set of either mediums or hards. Let's see what he's going to do. Have a little bit of a look at the tires, and indeed has gone for new medium tires, with Giacomundo being the only driver to opt for the hard compounds. But it looks like a medium soft soft or a medium soft medium is the best run that you can do there, or just soft medium medium. Let's see how that will play out as we now see Ghost fly by Rachman. But this was something that was coming. This was something we were waiting for. But now the question is, how quickly can Ghost get back? Remember, Ghost was in P3 earlier on, and will need to do the overtaking on track because of his offset tactics. Well, Jess and Okeke are fighting with each other. Okeke has dropped down the order a little bit because of it, but the gaps being also closed there means that mainly Jess has to watch out because she doesn't have DRS from the cars in front of her, and the 3 cars behind her will have some. Goes there taking some good lines, going a little bit wide into the final corner, but putting his car straight at the right moment, using his overtake once to get by Doug Shelby as quickly as possible, and already puts himself up into P5. But yeah, these are the laps for him to do it. Fuzzy Bear picks up another 3-second time penalty for track limits. Jamie has now come in after 6 laps on the softs, so I think he'll be moving on to the mediums, and indeed he has. So we'll be finishing the race on the mediums. Remember, 2 mandatory pit stops, which means if we look at the stops, the 3 drivers at the back have already adhered to the rules, the 1-up racing rules, with the 2-stop mandatory pit stops. All the other 12 drivers still need to make at least one, where if we have a safety car incident, will help them significantly. Let's go back to Golsten. Let's go on board with him for a moment. We have a caution in Sector 2. That's a Williams driver. That's, I think, the car of Okeki. Seems to have stopped on track. What's happened to him? He's hit the wall there. It's not significant enough for a safety car, nor does he seem to have lost any front wing end plates. So, not entirely sure if there is damage to the car, but from visually outside, there looks to be none. But not a great run that Okeki has had. Already dropped a few positions last lap, and now it's dropped even more. So let's go back to the fight up ahead, because Matthias, Ghost and Giggle are having a good fight with that. With Ghost trying to go for the move straight away here onto Matthias. Already down the inside, trying to make his move here. Tries to brake a little bit later. That is contact between the 2 drivers. A little bit of pushing too, but they keep it tight, they keep it safe. And so it is Ghost who gains a position onto Matthias. Those mediums are starting to come of age a little bit now, with the mediums in the top 6 all being 7 laps old, and Ghost's tires only being 3 laps old. As we see Rachman, who came in for a stop, and Hookie as well. And Shaquaze has picked up a 3-second time penalty for track limits. Now that is killing. That's going to cost him points. That's going to earn the Aston and also the Haas of Matthias some points. But in the end, with the Haas being where they are now, they will be clinching that constructor title as well. There goes Ghost. Giggle should let him go by. I think Giggle first wants to try and get the overtaking done onto Shaquaze, but with this action happening, Ghost can now go around the outside of both, perhaps. Has gotten Giggle. Can he get Shaquaze immediately too? We'll need to do it now then. We'll need to send it. But cannot quite go for it yet. But Ghost is fighting for something else here. He's not just fighting for a P2. Not just wanting to be in P3. He wants to go for that race win. With Funky already being 4.1 seconds ahead, that's going to be a tall order for Ghost to obtain. As we see the Haas driver come in, Matthias comes in. But now question, does he go for softs or mediums? Let's go on board with Matthias. Now 6 laps to go means that you can go for the softs. And he indeed does. So soft, medium, softs will be the strategy. Funky likely going to go for softs later on too. That means Ghost is only going to have fresher soft tires at the end, but seemingly lasted or stayed outside for a little bit too long, lost too much time, and because of that, it's going to be very tough for him to still contest Funky for that race win. But Ghost needs to get by Shaquaze this lap, needs to do it now, has almost no ERS at his disposal. Will be able to get close. Better exit. No mistakes from either drivers. Using the overtake that he has. Shaquaze trying to make sure that he makes it as difficult as possible for Ghost. Ghost looking to the inside. He goes side by side. I think it is just enough for Ghost, and indeed he has gotten the move done onto Shaquaze. Shaquaze, who will be falling back later on. Yeah, that of course because the 3-second time penalty. Now 4 drivers have picked up penalties for this very reason. As Okeki is in the pits and has gone back to his 7-lap-old mediums. I think that's a bit of a mistake. But that is not going to come in handy for him, as our race leader is in the pits and so is Shaquaze. So 8 laps is the durability of the medium tires tonight. So Ghost is going to push out an extra lap before he is going to come out into the pits. Meantime, we have a question coming in from the chat, who is running the 1-Hub League now. That is mostly just Jamie and Jess together, who are also driving here in the P3 tier. Jamie currently being in P11 But Jess finding herself in P3, but Jess still needing to make that pit stop. I think Jamie likely has to do one as well, as Hookie has also picked up time penalty for track limits. Let's look at the stops. So Funky has gone everything complete. So I have Matthias, Chiquays, Giggle, Richmond, Dutch. No, Jamie has done his stops. See John also coming in. So it's just Fozzie Bear, Jess, and Gulls who've yet to take their pit stops, as Richmond has now also gone the 3-second time penalty for track limit. So 7 of the 15 drivers have picked up track limit violations so far and added 3 or 6 seconds, name of Fozzie Bear, to their total time. For now, we stay on board with Ghost, because if there's anyone still trying to keep Funky from that final race win, it must be him. It is a tall mountain for him to climb. Fozzie Bear, in the meantime, has gotten past Jess. So Matthias is also quite close to that. But yeah, Jess will likely come in at the end of this lap. And I think Ghost should come in now as well. And he will indeed do so. So keep it tight. Keep it close. And now comes in indeed. Ahead of him, Okeki also coming in. Yeah, I had that mistake with the tires. So we'll be looking to get different set of compounds. A fresh set of compounds. We have yellow in sector 3. Is that Jess? That's Jess. Jess has made a mistake and Jess has lost positions. Jess is now going to be coming in, but has lost quite a bit of time because of that incident, because of that mistake. I'm not sure if there was any contact. I think we'll hear about that later on. But that is not going to help out Jess in her bid for P5 in the standings. And starting to look really bad, with Giggle still safely in P5. And yeah, with the lead up ahead. Oh no, there's more. Ghost has made a mistake. And it's now Ghost losing positions. Was in P2. Now finds himself in P6. So not helping out the Aston team there. Now the Haas looking to score a double podium. Well on their way to the constructor winners. And Matthias is also close to Chiquet, so could even get more. Let's go on board with Matthias now. Coming down the back straight. DRS is on, overtake is on, but is it enough? Is it enough ERS to go for a move? He's definitely eyeing for it. Has to go around the outside of Chiquet's into turn 12. But look at that, a double overtaking move by Giggle. What a massive send coming out from the Aston driver, and a beautiful move. Definitely the overtake of the day. Amazing stuff by Giggle. And now puts himself and at Aston in P2. Still showing the Aston team is fighting for something, as Ghost is also trying to come back at everyone. And now Matthias has to fight with Chiquays, and Chiquays comes down the outside and has made it work. Funky has set the fastest lap time. We also have more incidents down the mid-pack, with Rachman falling back a little bit. Also not having his best race. It's a reason why the man's called Bottoman32 for live on Discord. But still, P3 in the standings is a great result for him at the end. And definitely not something to be disappointed about. Another caution in Sector 1. Entirely sure for which driver that is, but it seems to be all clean and all good for the time being, as Giggle now has a couple of drivers hot on his tail. Seems that Okeki has joined them there. Yeah, Okeki of course being a lap down, so that is not too important for us to cover. Funky's got a good lead, 9.5 seconds, a few laps to go. There's not much that he can do to lose that. What is important though, and is interesting to watch, is that fight for P2 between Giggle, Chiquays and Matthias. And as Matthias is going to go for a move here, he's not doing that yet. And with the goals being enabled means that the Williams driver can just get past if that happens. As we also had a momentarily yellow flag in Sector 2, which I think was Fozzie Bear losing a little bit of extra time there, going I think a little bit wide at the end of turn 11. Back then on track, we see Chiquays losing a little bit of ground to Giggle. Ooh, coming out very risky out of turn 19, but still has enough of, well, ERS2 to defend, but also has that DRS enabled coming down the main straight as we now see Odok Shelby dropping down the order, and that might be a more notable incident. Has actually come in to the pits, so there's not going to be any safety cars, and with us entering lap 18 means no more safety cars can come out either, because it is not possible to finish behind the safety car. But with that, Odok Shelby loses enough positions to put him out of contention. Also make sure to stop for all that was necessary. Now finds himself in P13, which is good news for Jess, still picking up a point, but not the result she was hoping for. Let's now go on board with Matthias, who is very, very close to Chiquaise. Chiquaise, does he have DRS? He does not. So this is the moment, and Matthias needs to go by. No ERS for Chiquaise to defend, and Matthias has gotten P3. Doug Shelby picks up another time penalty now for track limits. Not his day so far after a pretty good qualifying run by him. The fight is on with the drivers up front. Giggle, Matthias, Chiquaise, and now also Ghost, who has put himself back up in that fight. Jess has also leapfrogged John, so Jess is now starting to make up some time. And with Hookie having the time penalty and also the old tires, might mean Jess takes some extra positions. Fozzie Bear also has time penalties. I believe that's 6 seconds for Fozzie Bear. And it is indeed. So Jess currently looking at a provisional P9 the way it stands. And Jamie, our race winner last time out here in Season 21, currently finds himself in P7. It's going to be a tall order for him to fight anything but that. Every driver has made their stops. So the only thing important now is what is going to be happening down at the end. We're going to go on board with Matthias once more as we're making our way around the end of the Twisty S sections and into the first DRS range, with Matthias being oh so close to Giggle. Chiquaise has fallen outside the DRS line, and we get Okeki with a 5-second time penalty for crossing the pit lane exit. That's not a penalty you see all too often. With Okeki being so far down the order, it also does not matter much in the results, not at all even. But with softer rubber, you can get that one extra point for the fastest lap time, as we see that Goals has gone by Chiquaise. So Chiquaise not being able to keep up with the pace would have been dropped back regardless. Oh no, Okeki. Time penalty for track limits too. Not his day either. It looks like the drivers, the final 3 drivers out there tonight, so Doc Shelby, Okeki, and Giacomundo, not having the day that they were hoping to have. More further up the field, a driver we haven't seen that much. Something that we see a lot during the real race coverage as well. A driver who's lonely up in front, doesn't always get enough attention from the cameras. So it's about time that we give it some now. But we immediately have to switch back to Matthias because he wants to go with a move onto Giggle. He's going to go and try go around the outside. That is an unconventional move. But with the DRS, it is enough to make that move stick. So it is a Haas 1-2 for the time being. But will need to keep Giggle behind the long back straight. And he has no ERS to defend. And nor has Giggle to even attack. Ghost has got none either. Chiquaise has got a little bit more. But he's going to be dropped down the order. Going to be dropping down the order nonetheless. But let's stay on board now with Giggle. Because Giggle can make an ultimate move into P2, back into P2, if he overtakes Matthias at the back straight. Harvested a little bit of ERS, not getting the better exit compared to Matthias. We see Okeki DNFing as well. Oh, I feel for him. Not the way that you want to end off the season. But here comes Giggle. Gets closer, can still go for a very late send. Is going to make that dive, but can he make it stick? Goes very, very wide. And Matthias wants to go back. Matthias wants to go back. Needs to hang out round the outside. Contact between the drivers in P2. A good line then is enough. Giggle has made the move stick as Doc Shelby is DNF too. But it will be Funky who's going to pick up the race win. Funky is going to come down the final corner. And with already being the championship winner, secures the championship for Haas. And gets the race win, the final race here tonight. And it looks like Giggle is going to stay in P2. So he picks up P5 in the standings. Make sure he gets a good result for the final race. But it is Haas winning your constructor standings. Funky being your championship winner, the race winner. P2 in the standings still for Ghost, with P3 in the standings going to Rageman. And like I mentioned, P4, well, P4 is for Nick. He was not participating tonight. And P5 goes to Giggle. After having a pretty good outing here tonight. I don't think... Was he... No, wait, Giggle was able to overtake Nick, I think. Maybe Giggle has gotten P4 even. Jess definitely P6 in the standings. That much is certain. But I want to take another look at the final standings in a moment to see if Giggle could have done enough there. But definitely the nominees, well, who else can it be? It really has to be Funky. Funky dominated throughout that session there. Ghost tried to do a strategy offset, and that is the question that I am wondering about. Did that strategy offset worry you at all, or were you confident in getting the race win here tonight? And the other driver that I want to highlight here is Giggle, because Giggle started a little bit further down the field, and after the pit stop sequences, most notably the second pit stop sequence, gained quite a bit of positions, and with that last minute move, putting himself into P2 as well. So my question to you is, how did the main race go, and how happy are you that this result puts you P5 in the standings at final? And with our drivers drinking the champagne, we are going to go to the results. So we show the race results on screen. The race win goes to Funky. Then is Giggle, Matthias, Ghost, Shaquays, Jamie, who still picks up a lovely P6 after being the race winner here last time out. Rageman P7. Then it's Ols in this final race picking up some good points. Jess in P9 and Fozzie Bear P10. And finally we have Jal Mason, Hookie, Odok Shelby, Jackamundo, and Okeki in P15. Those are your final race results. But like I mentioned, what is going to be interesting for me to watch is who's gotten P4 in the standings. Has anyone been able to pip Nick? Let's have a look at that now. If we take a look at our standings, Giggle was 16 points behind Nick. A second place result gets you 17 points. So that means that even without the sprint result, Giggle has gotten the move onto Nick Dunn as well. For Rageman, it is not going to be enough because I think Rageman just scored enough points. So that means Giggle is going to pick up a lovely 4th position in the standings. Nick drops down to 5th. Jess unfortunately hasn't scored enough points to take over Nick. But Rageman has scored enough to get that P3 from him. So that means the standings should be as follows, with Funky, Ghost, Rageman, Giggle, Nick, and Jess in P6. And P7 to Jamie for that matter. Then, if we go to the constructor standings, we have a manufacturer winner as well. It is the MoneyGram Hasselhoff team who picks up the title there and gets a free entry into the next season, with the Aston Martin team getting quite close with a good result in the last few rounds, but not enough to get that championship there for the constructors. They are one of the teams that score the most points in a single race together with the As team actually. As team in round 2 scoring 40 points, and the Aston Martin team in round 9. Yes, round 9 scoring 40 points, but I think because the sprint weekend, the Haas team might have pipped that score tonight and scored more points in total. Now, in the meantime, let's have a look at the P3 tier chat to see if there's anything that we are talking about. Shaquays is mentioning some sorries. Bottleman is asking for, did I get P3? Well, you should have gotten that. Funky mentioning that the softs were terrible, even though he was able to get quite a significant lead with those soft runners here tonight. And yeah, with him having such a great season. I mean, let's look at the results for Funky. I'll just read them out loud for you so you can hear the result that he put out there. So, first race, P2. Second race, sprint weekend, which was in Imola. P2 in the sprint race, P1 in the main race. Then Hungary, P3. Race win in Brazil. 4th place in Japan. Then the sprint weekend in Vegas. 2 race wins, so both in the sprint and the main race. P2 at the race in Portugal. And then with a P6 at a race in Belgium where he took his engine penalty. then went on to the race in Spain, the sprint weekend, first and second, with another second place in Singapore, which got him the championship win already with 2 races to go. And then last time out in Silverstone, he put out a P7, where the race win actually went to Chiquaise, who got his first race win there, and I think his first one-up race win too in general. So big shout out to him for that. Fortunately, tonight was not as great as it could have been. But that is all the information that I have for you here tonight. So we're going to tune out before I leave you with a final note from our sponsors, before we're going to close off the season here for P3 and tell you about all the other action that you should still be following. But first, a word from our sponsors. So for this season, season 23, we have a 2,500 prize pool, £2,500 prize pool divided between the 3 sections, with the Drivers' Championship winning a £50 PS or Amazon voucher, and with the top 5 all getting a free entry into the next season, with also the Constructors, so the Haas team, getting free entry into the next season also. Then the winners are in with a chance to win the FGT Elite Light Cockpit and Elite ES1 Sim Racing seat. So either the winner of P1, 2 or 3 tier is going to get that. So Funky has a 1 in 3 chance to get this. Then for the drivers in P2 and 3, they are competing for GT Elite Light Cockpit and ES2 Racing seat. Also one of them will be the lucky ones to get that. And for all drivers in with a chance to win the NLR Wheel Stand 2.0 if they participate in at least 10 races in total. Furthermore, we're also powered by Astag with these lovely boots that you can pick up for your races if you get the shortest combined qualifying time all the way throughout. Then we have Pure Sim gear for the driver with the most fastest laps and pulls combined. They're going to get these gloves or socks that you could wear as well. A lot of drivers in sim racing actually drive on socks, so you get a bit of a better feel for that pedal. Then we have the mystery sim box with the mystery shirt box, which could very well be Funky picking that up, especially with his great results out there tonight. But we'll have to see if the driver in P1 tier, Timo Geurts, can still pip him to that. That, of course, is going to be starting in 30 minutes from now here on YouTube, with currently qualifying being underway for P2 on Twitch, so you should check that out in a moment. But first off, the other sponsors, which are also Vespertine and ERT. And ERT coming out with the ERT Going Get Stuff Award, which quickly explained means that if you attend all races, finish outside the top 3 and complete all pre and post race interviews, you'll be in with a shot for that lovely t-shirt that I just showed you a moment ago. And then finally, we are powered by SimGrid and also the Mental Health Foundation. Well, that is all, folks. Closing from me then. So I was your host for P3 this season. My name is Sky. We've had a wonderful season 23 with the Haas team being out there on top, not winning not only the constructors but also the driver title with Funky out there. We've had an amazing season. We've had some great races. We learned some new things as well with a very incident-packed race in Singapore, but also close races. Even in Spain, where it came down to the last corner between Ghost and Funky. Some cool and great racing all the way throughout. And it's something that we definitely hope to continue in seasons to come. In the meantime, make sure to check out the P2 tier that's currently happening out there on Twitch. And don't go anywhere on YouTube either, because in 30 minutes, the final race on the season for the P1 tier. And that is going to determine who picks up the driver ranking title. That's all for tonight, folks. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. This is all for tonight. This was the P3 tier. This was season 23 of One Up Racing. I wish you all a very good night.